Hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about E.T.C, particularly the 4 mistakes that I most commonly see. I've been coaching a lot with tanks, and it's surprising to me because, one, I don't see a lot of E.T.Cs when I personally really like E.T.C. Two, I keep seeing a lot of people who are playing E.T.C playing him wrong. And I want to explain the 4 biggest mistakes that I commonly see. The first major mistake is that people use their abilities way too often. They slide in constantly, they use their W, and the challenge is if you use your Q and then your W, what's going to happen is that you fire your Q in, you knock the enemies out, and all of the abilities that your team was trying to follow up that initial stun is going to be wasted purely because you're going to knock everyone out. And when you knock them away, then part of the duration of that stun is wasted. What a lot of people don't know about E.T.C is that this stun duration is actually the same duration as a Varian taunt. If you've ever had the opportunity where you have taunted someone and they just blow up right after you taunt them, well, E.T.C has the same potential, except for the fact that it isn't always abused the same way. So I think it's imperative that people know the potential that E.T.C has by just getting a little bit of damage off before you use your knockback. Not to mention that you can simply just body block people for a long time without ever using your W, and then right as they start getting right to the edge of your W, or right to the edge of your unit radii or your hitbox, you can just fire off a W and knock them into a position they don't want to be in. Which is kind of what I wanted to explain on that. If you ever watch me play E.T.C, which I might show a clip after this of me playing some E.T.C, you can pretty much just sit here, regen for the majority of the time, and in order to peel off your team, you just simply knock back the enemies as they're trying to get close, knock back the enemies as they're trying to get close, and then right as they overcommit into something, you can use your slide, and then get to a position and send them back into your team. And that's pretty much what you could be doing. The second biggest mistake that I see on E.T.Cs so often is that people will use their Q and W and they think that's their only combo. But in reality, one of the better combos is to knock them into your team and then stun them, and then try to body block them. Because knocking them into your team is oftentimes more effective than getting on the other side of them and then knocking them over there. Because if you actually can just walk past, then it's going to be a lot more efficient of going in, knocking them into your team, sliding into them, and your whole team takes them out. It also puts you in a much better position as you're closer to your team, and you can kind of blow up anyone that's out of position. The third major mistake that I see on E.T.Cs way too often is they're moshing wrong. They'll kind of go in, and they'll see a fight that's going on, their Q or their W will be on cooldown, and they'll immediately just go for a dry mosh like this. Well, the problem is that this gives a lot of time for the enemies to run out of the mosh. It also gives a lot of time for the enemies to interrupt the mosh before you actually get it off, and then reposition after they've interrupted the mosh. So there's an easier way. You see, E.T.C's Mosh Pit has a channel time of 0.75 seconds before the actual mosh goes off. You can see channel, mosh. And this 0.75 seconds is enough for people to walk out of it. However, the stun of this lasts 1.25 seconds. If you were to stun someone, not only does it put you into range of your mosh pit, but it also stuns them for that was incorrect. But it also puts you in the stun duration to where they're stunned the entire time the mosh goes off. An Uberok, for example, has a lot of CC to prevent a mosh pit. But if you stun him for the duration of your mosh cast, he's not going to be able to get out until much later. Once he gets out, you can knock him back in, and you can also slide over him to keep him back in this area. There's a lot of things you can do once you get this proper mosh connection and immediately go into a slide and mosh pit. This is also how you can take Mosh Pit against teams that have a lot of CC, purely because if you can get them into a clustered area, like fighting right into here, you can slide through all of them and immediately mosh their entire team and not have to worry about large amounts of interrupts. That's the major idea of what you want to be doing with a Mosh Pit if you do end up picking up Mosh Pit as an ultimate. You might be saying, well, Paradox, what is the last mistake that you commonly see? The fourth and most common mistake out of every single rank that I've ever seen is the fact that people don't abuse how much wave clear E.T.C actually has. One auto attack onto each of the backliners, sliding through, and using your W clears almost the entirety of the wave. In that case, I did not hit that one with a Q. But that's pretty much all it takes. Now, this is a level 20, and especially this is the build that I usually go on E.T.C. So it may be different at different levels, but you can simply slide through and blow up just about any amount of minions. And I believe I got a second W off there, but it only takes really one auto attack, a QW, to get through all of the minions and take them out. So that's really what I wanted to share, was that people are not abusing the amount of wave clear E.T.C actually has, and that's how you carry in low ranks, is to deal with waves very quickly and then get back to your team so the enemies miss an entire wave of soak and you get that wave of soak. So to finish this guide off, I want to explain one major tip about Mosh Pit, and then I want to go through and explain the build that I'm in, and this build is also the build that has the wave clear. So, Mosh Pit's one of those abilities that everyone likes to hold back something to interrupt Mosh Pit, because if they don't, then you lose. So oftentimes what I'll notice is if I don't cast Mosh Pit in the higher ranks, people will just hold back their CCs for so long that we just win the fight without Mosh Pit. So it's okay to sometimes pick Mosh Pit into a lot of interrupts, as long as you know how to hold it back for the right moment, and sometimes hold it back for the entirety of a team fight. Anyways, I really want to show the build that I personally like, just because I'm not going to say this is a build you should always use, but this is the build that I kind of prefer. If you happen to be picking up, no matter the ults that you pick, I like Prog Rock, mainly because it gives you a ton of self-sustain to deal with poke on the enemy team. I will sometimes pick up Block Party against something like a Hammer or against Azul Jin, but against any sort of poke, Prog Rock not only gives me healing so I can take shots for my team, but I could also heal my team in case they take those shots. Loudspeaker gives me one of the biggest knockbacks in the game, allows me to really push people into my team or push people away from my team if I need to peel, making E.T.C one of my favorite tanks for peeling. Pinball Wizard gives me the wave clear that I just showed you, while Echo Pedal also gives a good chunk of wave clear. I like Pinball Wizard because it's a little bit more unexpected. You do a couple quick attacks, slide through, blow it up, and you can leave lane. And that quick burst makes it to where people see an E.T.C in lane, and suddenly there's no E.T.C in lane, and they're missing an entire wave of soak. By level 7, you can quickly deal with waves. I will tell you, though, the amounts, because of scaling, are a little bit different. It takes 2 to 3 auto attacks at level 7 with Pinball Wizard to clear an entire wave, so it will take a lot longer. But as you get up to level 10 and 13, it gets down to only 2 or 1 auto attack per. I believe level 13 is when it's 1 auto attack per. Mosh Pit and Stage Dive are both amazing ults. I tend to pick Mosh Pit on smaller maps, Stage Dive on larger maps, but sometimes with a huge amount of interrupts, I will pick up Stage Dive on smaller maps. Mic Check for me in this build is a must. Lowers the cooldown of your biggest peel ability so that you can constantly peel a numerous amount of enemies as long as you're hitting 2 at the same time, which is usually the tank and 1 diver. Showstopper is kind of my go-to when I have Mosh Pit. Aggressive Shredding is my go-to if I pick Stage Dive. Pretty much means if I'm going to be moshing someone, I'm going to be having a ton of armor, so the ones that don't have interrupts can't kill me while I'm doing mosh. Or Aggressive Shredding if I'm just trying to be as aggressive in team fights and then still have the capability of Stage Diving later. Stage Dive, that's kind of a mini mistake that a lot of people make with Stage Dive, is when they pick up Stage Dive, they assume they have to be a global. If you're a main tank, you should still be with your group. You shouldn't rely on Stage Dive, because then you're only going to jump in when your team's gotten engaged on. You can use it a little bit as a global, and then make sure that your team's always engaging with Stage Dive, but it requires some coordination, not usually what I recommend. It's okay to use this kind of at the end of a fight to catch their backliners, or during kind of a reset phase where everyone's trying to reset out of a team fight. Level 20, I love death metal. Yes, there are some other amazing talents here. I love death metal because it's an uninterruptible mosh that you can pick with either ultimate ability. Maybe you mosh pit a couple people, and then they use their abilities to interrupt you, and then you kind of just get in their backline, and then you die on the way that they needed to escape, and boom, you just got another mosh. And this second mosh is uninterruptible, so whatever they try to do, they can't do it, and you end up winning this fight. Any even team fight can be won with a death metal, and at level 20, a death metal winning team fight is game ending. So that's really why I like death metal. It's just a brutal ultimate that just wins games. But the other ultimates are very good, or the other level 20 upgrades are very good. Bolt of the Storm allows you to get a sneaky mosh off where you can bolt over a wall and then slide and mosh everyone. But oftentimes if you bolt, slide, mosh, you're too far away from your team to follow up. The Storm Shield can help you win some chaotic team fights, but hopefully you're using Mic Check well enough that you don't need those answers to chaotic team fights. If you're starting to lose a fight, you can pretty much just knock everyone away. And so that's really where we want it to be. If you're in a defensive fight, use your W to keep everyone alive. If you're on an offensive fight, you should be using some form of Mosh Pit or Stage Dive to take out the enemies. And those are the 4 mistakes that people commonly make on E.T.C. along with a build guide. Thank you so much for watching, and feel free to check out any of my other videos. If you have any other guides you'd like to add or tips that you'd like to add for E.T.C., toss it in the comments below. As well as, if you guys would, please toss that subscribe button a click, press that little bell that's next to it to be notified whenever I bring out new videos. It really helps me out. I appreciate it. Thank you again for watching this video.